It began in a very ordinary way, on a day that felt no different from many others. The kind of day where people followed routines without thinking much about them. He woke up early, as he always did, in a small rented room that carried the quiet sound of traffic from outside. The walls were plain, the room simple, but it was enough. Life had taught him to be grateful for small comforts. He washed his face, made a cup of tea, and sat near the window for a few minutes. Watching the city slowly come alive, he was not unhappy, but he was not truly happy either. There was a calm sadness in him, the kind that comes from years of handling things alone. He had learned not to expect much from people. Trust, for him, had become something fragile. He worked hard, paid his bills, and kept moving forward, even on days when his heart felt tired. To most people, he looked strong and quiet. Very few knew how much he carried inside. She lived not very far away, though at that time, neither of them knew the other existed. Her mornings were slower. She liked to take her time, especially with small things like watering plants on the balcony or feeding the stray cat that waited for her every day. She believed that kindness, even in small forms, mattered. Life had hurt her too, but instead of closing her heart, she had chosen to keep it open, even when it scared her. She believed that good things could still happen, not because life had been easy, but because she refused to let pain define her. She had been disappointed before, trusted the wrong people, and learned lessons the hard way. Still, she smiled easily and listened carefully when others spoke. People often felt calm around her, though they did not always understand why. Their paths crossed in the most simple setting. No dramatic scene, no loud moment, just a shared space where people came and went every day. At first, they noticed each other only in passing. A brief glance, a polite nod. Nothing more. But sometimes, the smallest moments carry the biggest meaning. He noticed her kindness before he noticed her face. The way she held the door open for strangers. The way she thanked people with honesty in her voice. There was something gentle about her presence. It made the space feel lighter, even on busy days. He did not think much of it at first. He was used to keeping distance, to not letting his thoughts wander too far. She noticed his silence, not the uncomfortable kind, but the thoughtful kind. He did not speak much, but when he did, his words were careful and sincere. He listened more than he talked. There was a sense of depth in him, like someone who had lived through storms and learned how to stand quietly afterward. She wondered about his story, though she never asked. Days passed and small moments began to repeat themselves. They found themselves sharing brief conversations about simple things. Work, weather, small complaints about the day. Nothing personal, nothing deep. Yet those short exchanges slowly became something both of them looked forward to, even if neither admitted it. He began to arrive a few minutes earlier than usual, without fully understanding why. She started noticing the time more carefully, hoping not to miss those familiar moments. It was strange how comfort could grow without effort, without promises, without plans. There was no rush, no expectations, just a quiet connection, forming in its own time. One evening, something small happened that stayed with both of them. He had a long day. Everything felt heavy, and he was clearly tired. She noticed it immediately. Without asking too many questions, she simply offered a few kind words. Nothing dramatic, just genuine concern. It surprised him more than he expected. He was not used to being noticed in that way. People often saw what he did, but not how he felt. That small act of care stayed with him long after they went their separate ways that day. It reminded him of something he had almost forgotten, that being seen did not always come with conditions. For her, the moment was just as meaningful. She saw the way his expression softened, even if only for a second. It made her realize that behind his calm exterior was someone who felt deeply. She did not see him as distant anymore. She saw him as human, vulnerable in his own quiet way. As days turned into weeks, their conversations grew a little longer. They shared small stories from their lives, careful not to reveal too much too soon. He spoke about his work struggles, his responsibilities, and the pressure to always stay strong. She spoke about her love for simple joys, her belief in patience, and her hope that life could still surprise her. There was laughter too, soft laughter that came naturally, without effort. Moments where time seemed to slow down, even if only for a few minutes. Neither of them labeled what was happening. They did not need to. It felt safe the way it was, yet, beneath the calm surface, both felt something changing inside them. A quiet awareness that this connection mattered more than they wanted to admit. He found himself thinking about her during his day, wondering if she was doing well. She caught herself smiling at random moments, realizing that his presence had started to mean something special. Still, there was caution. Both carried past experiences that had taught them to be careful with their hearts. They did not want to rush into anything or misunderstand kindness for something it was not. So they stayed where they were, letting the bond grow naturally. One afternoon, rain fell unexpectedly. People rushed to find shelter, but they found themselves standing together, waiting for the rain to slow. The sound of water filled the air, and for a moment the world felt quiet. They talked about nothing important, yet it felt important all the same. In that moment, both felt it. A sense of belonging that did not need words. Comfort that felt rare and honest. It was not love yet, not in the way stories often describe, but it was the beginning of something real. As they parted ways that day, neither knew what the future held. They only knew that something had changed, something gentle, something meaningful. A connection that had grown quietly, without force, without expectation. And so, the story began. Not with promises or passion, but with two people slowly finding warmth in each other's presence. A simple beginning that held the promise of something far deeper, waiting to unfold in time. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet connection between them began to grow in small, meaningful ways. They still met in the same ordinary spaces, but now their interactions carried a warmth that neither had expected. Conversations, once brief and polite, had started to linger. They laughed more easily and shared thoughts that felt too personal for most people. Yet they were careful, treading gently, not rushing what was naturally unfolding. He noticed how her presence had begun to make even ordinary days feel lighter. A small smile from her, a playful comment, or a gentle word had the power to change his mood entirely. Work stress or personal worries seemed smaller when she was around. He found himself looking forward to these encounters, not out of expectation, but because her presence made the world feel more bearable. He did not realize how deeply he was starting to care. She, too, felt a subtle shift in her heart. She had always believed in kindness and compassion, but there was something different about him. He had a quiet strength that comforted her, and a soft honesty that made her feel safe. She found herself sharing little details of her day that she usually kept to herself. She laughed at his dry humor and noticed the small, thoughtful gestures he made without expecting anything in return. It was as if she had discovered someone who understood her without needing explanation. One evening, they walked together along a quiet street, the city bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. The air was cool, carrying the scent of rain from earlier in the day. They talked about simple things, books, movies, and childhood memories. In those ordinary topics, there was a feeling of intimacy. Neither realized how much time had passed until they were gently reminded by the late hour. Moments like these, simple and unplanned, began to feel like a lifeline. He began noticing small details about Hertha, way she tucked her hair behind, her ear when she was thinking, or how her eyes lit up when she talked about something she loved. These observations made him feel more connected to her, not in a rush or forceful way, but with quiet admiration. He cared not because he was searching for love, but because her presence had become important to him. There was a comfort in simply being near her. She noticed how he listened, truly listened, not just with his ears, but with his attention and understanding. People often hear, but they rarely listen. He did, and it mattered more than she could express. She began to realize that she could trust him with small vulnerabilities, with moments she would have shared with no one else. Each conversation, each laugh, each gentle word slowly built a bridge between them, stronger than either had expected. There were moments of quiet playfulness, too. One afternoon, while waiting for the bus in a drizzle, they found themselves joking about how the rain seemed to follow them everywhere. She laughed at his witty remarks, and he smiled at her delight. These playful exchanges were small, but they were powerful. They built a sense of companionship, a feeling that they could face ordinary days together without fear. As the days passed, their connection began to feel more like a friendship that was slowly transforming into something deeper. He noticed himself sharing thoughts he had never spoken aloud before, fears, hopes, even doubts about his future. And she listened, without judgment, offering quiet encouragement or a comforting smile. In return, she shared her own moments of doubt and her dreams for the future. Neither forced the pace. The bond grew naturally, built on understanding and shared moments. There were also moments of uncertainty. Both were careful not to misread intentions or expect too much too soon. They had been hurt in the past, and the fear of losing something precious made them hesitant. Yet, even in their caution, there was a growing recognition that this connection was different. It was real, grounded, and comforting. The realization was slow, almost imperceptible. But it began to settle in their hearts. He started noticing how her small acts of kindness reached beyond him. The way she spoke to people in stores, the way she helped a stranger with directions, or how she gave food to a stray animal. He admired this deeply. It made him feel that someone so gentle could bring light into the world, and it inspired him to be kinder and more open himself. She was not just part of his day. She was quietly influencing the way he saw life. She, too, noticed changes in herself. She had always cared deeply for people, but his quiet strength and thoughtfulness began to make her reflect on her own actions and feelings. She found herself thinking about him in moments of solitude, wondering how he was doing, hoping he was well. It was a gentle, warm feeling, not overwhelming, but persistent. It made her smile more, even in her own private moments. One weekend, they found themselves sitting in a small park, sharing a simple picnic. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle, and the sounds of children playing filled the air. They did not need grand gestures or dramatic confessions. The simplicity of the moment, the shared silence, and the ease of being together created a memory neither would forget. They realized that comfort and companionship often mattered more than grand expressions of love. Through all these interactions, both began to understand that love does not always arrive with fireworks or loud declarations. Sometimes it starts quietly, in the small exchanges of attention, care, and respect. They began to recognize this in each other, even if neither wanted to say it out loud. The understanding was felt, not spoken. It made the bond feel stronger. As the weeks continued, their friendship deepened naturally. There were moments of joy, shared experiences, and subtle tenderness. He began to anticipate her presence, and she began to feel reassured by his quiet attention. Life's ordinary routines became meaningful when shared with someone who truly understood. The comfort of being together without needing to define it became their unspoken agreement in their hearts. Both felt a quiet excitement, a sense that something rare and valuable was forming. Neither had rushed into words or actions, but the connection had a presence that could not be ignored. They were learning that love, at its best, starts with patience, understanding, and the courage to be seen as you truly are. And so, what had begun as small, ordinary encounters was evolving into a deep friendship with the first glimmers of love. The bond they shared was not yet declared, but it was deeply felt. Both were aware of the subtle changes in their hearts, the quiet anticipation of being near each other, and the joy of sharing life's simple moments together. This was the stage where friendship turned into something more. A gentle transformation that promised warmth, care, and the first stirrings of real, enduring love as the connection between them grew. Life began to test the bond they had formed so gently. Everything had seemed simple and easy, but reality had its own way of reminding them that nothing in life came without challenges. It started with small misunderstandings, brief moments of miscommunication that seemed insignificant at first, but left a shadow on their quiet happiness. He had been under pressure at work for weeks, facing deadlines and responsibilities that drained his energy. The long days made him more withdrawn, and he found himself snapping at small things he normally would have ignored. She noticed the change immediately. The warmth that had been so constant in his presence seemed dimmed. She tried to reach out with gentle words, small gestures, But sometimes the walls people build around themselves are stronger than kindness can immediately break. She, on the other hand, had her own burdens. Family pressures, unexpected events, and personal concerns made her feel stretched thin. The stress often left her distracted and short-tempered, something she felt guilty about when around him. She did not want to burden him, so she kept some of her struggles to herself. But the silence, meant to protect, began creating distance. And both felt it, even if neither admitted it aloud. One afternoon, a small argument arose over something trivial, yet it felt heavier than it should have. Words were exchanged that neither fully meant, and the quiet comfort of their connection felt suddenly fragile. He left the conversation feeling misunderstood and uncertain. She was left feeling hurt and frustrated that her intentions had been misread. For the first time, ease they had taken for granted seemed threatened by their own fears and insecurities. The days that followed were uneasy. They still saw each other, but the lightness was gone. Their conversations were careful, polite, and guarded. Laughter was rare, and even the small joys that had once come naturally now felt strained. Both sensed that the bond was being tested, and both feared that the fragility of human emotion might allow something precious to slip away. During this period, he spent long nights reflecting on his own behavior. He realized how easy it was to let stress and fear cloud his thoughts. He thought about her smile, the kindness in her voice, and the comfort of her presence, and it became clear that he did not want to lose the connection they had built. But acknowledging the value of something does not make it easy to fix when pride and uncertainty are involved. She also spent her nights in thought, replaying conversations and wondering if she had done enough to show that she cared. She remembered the small gestures, the shared silences, and the laughter that had once come so naturally. She realized that the bond meant more than she had allowed herself to admit. That fear of vulnerability had created unnecessary walls between them. Life, as it often does, continued to move forward. He faced a particularly difficult week at work, where a critical project almost failed. Exhaustion weighed heavily on him, and for the first time, he allowed himself to reach out, not out of expectation, but because he trusted her enough to be honest. He shared his frustrations, fears, and the sense of being overwhelmed. It was a small step, but it marked the beginning of healing. She listened patiently, now offering not empty words, but genuine understanding. She shared encouragement, her own experiences with challenges, and gentle reminders that struggles do not define a person's worth. The warmth slowly returned to their interactions. The tension of the past days did not vanish immediately, but they both realized that honesty and vulnerability could bridge the gaps that fear had created. This period of challenge also helped them see each other more clearly. He recognized her strength and resilience, not just in the easy moments, but in the way she carried herself through difficulties. Her patience, thoughtfulness, and quiet courage became more evident than ever. He admired how she balanced her own life while offering care and support. Even when circumstances were challenging, she, in turn, saw his depth and sincerity in a new light. She noticed his determination to overcome his struggles, his quiet support when others needed him, and the small gestures that showed his thoughtfulness. She realized that his apparent calm was not indifference, but a deliberate choice to handle life with patience and integrity. The respect and admiration she felt deepened, adding new layers to the bond they shared. Despite the challenges, small moments of connection began to appear again. A shared cup of coffee, a smile exchanged across a crowded room, or a brief, meaningful conversation reminded them both of the warmth that existed beneath the temporary strain. These moments were fragile, but they were also precious, reinforcing the understanding that relationships grow not only in comfort but also through navigating difficulties. One evening, a moment of accidental closeness sparked a quiet realization. Standing together under the glow of streetlights, an accidental touch or shared glance carried weight beyond words. Both felt the lingering presence of emotions that neither had dared to fully name. It was a gentle awakening that love, in its truest form, often arrives in the smallest, most unspoken ways. As time went on, they began to find balance again. They learned to communicate more openly, to share worries without fear of judgment, and to listen without immediately trying to fix everything. The challenges they faced were not erased, but they became opportunities to understand each other better and to strengthen the fragile trust that connected them through these experiences. They realized that love is not always a series of perfect moments. It is tested by reality, by misunderstandings, and by the weight of life's responsibilities. Yet these tests, though difficult, also reveal the depth of the bond and the sincerity of emotions. Both began to understand that true connection requires patience, empathy, and the courage to remain present even when circumstances are hard. By the end of this period, the quiet comfort they had shared before had returned. But it was now richer, more resilient, and deeply understood. They laughed together again, shared stories, and found joy in the ordinary moments of life. The bond that had been tested had not broken, it had evolved. Becoming stronger and more meaningful, they had learned that love, when genuine, is not about constant happiness or effortless days. It is about choosing to stay, to communicate, and to care, even when life is complicated. Their hearts had grown closer through understanding, forgiveness, and the patience to navigate life's unexpected challenges. And so, their story continued not with drama or grand declarations, but with the quiet strength of two people who were learning that the truest connections are built in both joy and hardship. The love that was forming was not yet spoken in full, but it was alive, tender, and deeply human. Carrying the promise of a bond that could endure beyond the tests of everyday life, time passed, and circumstances led to a period of distance between them. Life, with its unpredictable twists, created a separation that neither had wanted but both had to accept. The quiet closeness they had enjoyed was interrupted by responsibilities, personal challenges, and the need for space to reflect. This separation, though difficult, became a period of self-realization and understanding. He found himself alone with thoughts he had often ignored. The silence was heavy at first, but gradually it became a space for reflection. He remembered the small moments they had shared, the laughter, the quiet talks, the gestures that had brought comfort. Each memory carried weight, reminding him of the connection that had grown between them. He realized that this bond had become essential to his happiness, something he could not take for granted. During this time, he explored aspects of himself that had been neglected. He faced fears he had kept hidden, acknowledged emotions he had buried, and learned to express vulnerability without shame. He wrote in a journal, meditated on his decisions, and tried to understand the patterns in his own behavior. This period of solitude helped him grow, teaching him patience, empathy, and the importance of emotional honesty. She, too, experienced a period of deep reflection. The absence of his presence left a space that was difficult to fill. She thought about the bond they had built, the gentle trust, and the comfort they had offered each other. She questioned her own feelings, wondering what it truly meant to care for someone so profoundly. Through this introspection, she discovered strengths within her self-resilience, courage, and the ability to hope despite uncertainty. Both of them faced challenges that made the distance even more pronounced. He struggled with work pressures, responsibilities that demanded his attention, and personal doubts that threatened his peace. She encountered unexpected changes in her life, family concerns, and the weight of obligations that pulled her in multiple directions. In facing these challenges alone, they each developed a deeper understanding of themselves and what they valued, even in separation. Small reminders of each other appeared. A familiar phrase, a fleeting thought, or a memory triggered unexpectedly brought warmth and longing. They realized that the bond they had formed was not dependent on constant presence, but on emotional connection, trust, and understanding. These small reminders served as anchors, keeping hope alive. During this period, both began to reassess their priorities. He recognized the importance of balancing responsibility with personal happiness. He understood that true connections require attention, presence, and care. She, similarly, realized that life was richer when shared with someone who understood and supported her. Their reflections were not about rushing back into each other's arms, but about growing into people who could fully embrace the relationship when the time came. They also learned patience. an essential part of love that is often overlooked. Patience was not passive waiting. It was active growth, self-awareness, and understanding that emotions and circumstances could not be forced. They learned to honor the space between them, to respect each other's lives, and to trust that connection can endure even when physically apart. One evening, he recalled a particular conversation they had shared on a rainy day. The memory brought a sense of clarity. He realized that love is not only about being together, but also about supporting growth, even from a distance. He acknowledged the depth of his feelings and the importance of her presence in his life. This understanding gave him courage to be honest with himself and eventually with her. She, reflecting on the same time, remembered how he had listened to her quietly, never judging, always offering support. Those moments, once taken for granted, now felt invaluable. She understood that the love they shared was built not on dramatic gestures, but on consistent care, mutual respect, and shared humanity. This realization strengthened her resolve to nurture the connection, even if it required patience and introspection. During these weeks of reflection, each began to make small changes in their lives. He became more mindful of his emotions, worked on communication skills, and allowed himself to be more open with people he trusted. She became more self-aware, focusing on personal growth, emotional resilience, and the ability to balance care for others with care for herself. These changes were subtle but significant, preparing them for a deeper, more mature connection. Even without direct contact, the emotional bond persisted. They felt the presence of each other in thoughts, in quiet moments, and in the subtle influence they had on each other's decisions. It was a love that did not rely on constant visibility, but on understanding, respect, and emotional depth. This period taught them that real love can endure separation, growing stronger as individuals become better versions of themselves. By the end of this reflective period, both felt a renewed sense of clarity and purpose. They understood their own hearts more deeply and appreciated the importance of connection built on trust and care. The separation, while difficult, had allowed them to see each other with greater understanding, empathy, and appreciation. They were no longer the same people who had first met in those ordinary moments. The time apart had added depth, patience, and emotional maturity to their bond. It had shown them that love is not just about presence, but about growth, understanding, and the courage to face life's challenges together or apart. And so, when the time came to reconnect, they did so with hearts prepared, with patience cultivated, and with the knowledge that the bond they shared was resilient. They were ready to embrace each other not just with affection, but with understanding, respect, and a love that had been tested and strengthened through time and reflection. The stage was now set for a heartfelt reunion, grounded in reality and enriched by personal growth, promising a love that could endure whatever the future might bring. After the months of reflection and personal growth, the time finally came for them to reconnect. The distance had been challenging, but it had also strengthened their understanding of themselves and each other. They both carried a quiet hope that their bond had endured, and now they had the chance to test it. Not with urgency, but with patience and clarity. He arrived first at their familiar meeting spot, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. His heart beat faster than usual, yet there was a calm beneath the anticipation. He thought about the long months of solitude, the lessons he had learned, and the small moments that had made him realize how deeply he cared for her. He knew that this reunion would be meaningful, but he also understood that love was not about grand gestures. It was about presence, sincerity, and understanding. She arrived a few minutes later, and the sight of him brought a warmth that words could not capture. She noticed the quiet strength in his demeanor, the kindness in his eyes, and the subtle confidence that came from self-reflection. She felt a rush of emotions, relief, happiness, and a gentle certainty that their connection had survived the trials of distance. Both of them had changed, grown, and matured, and yet the bond between them remained intact. Waiting to be embraced once more, they greeted each other with smiles that held the weight of shared memories and unspoken understanding. No awkwardness lingered. Instead, there was an ease that only comes from deep familiarity. They began walking together, letting the rhythm of their steps match the quiet comfort of being in each other's presence again. Conversations flowed naturally, sometimes light, sometimes reflective, but always genuine. He spoke of the challenges he had faced, the ways he had tried to grow, and the realizations that had come from being apart. She listened, not just with her ears, but with her heart, understanding that every word reflected his journey toward emotional honesty and maturity. She shared her own experiences, the moments of doubt, the lessons learned, and the ways she had strengthened herself during the separation. It was a conversation that required no judgment, only mutual respect and attention. As they talked, laughter returned naturally, filling the spaces that had felt heavy during their time apart. They joked about small, shared memories, and the ease of humor reminded them both of the depth of their connection. There was a balance between seriousness and playfulness, reflecting the reality that life was not perfect, but love could make it meaningful and comforting. A small park appeared along their walk, and they decided to sit on a bench beneath the soft shade of a tree. The atmosphere was calm, and the sunlight filtering through the leaves seemed to mirror the warmth they felt inside. For a moment, words were unnecessary. They simply sat together, observing the world and feeling the presence of someone who truly mattered. It was in these quiet moments that the depth of love often reveals itself, not in dramatic gestures, but in the comfort of shared silence. He reached out gently to take her hand, and she responded without hesitation. The simple touch spoke volumes, expressing care, affection, and the understanding that they had both arrived at this moment with hearts ready and open. They realized that love does not need to be loud to be true. It only needs to be present, consistent, and sincere. This touch symbolized their commitment to be honest with each other and to cherish the bond that had endured so much. They spoke about the past months, acknowledging the difficulties they had faced and the lessons they had learned. He admitted the moments of doubt, the fears that had held him back, the understanding he had gained about the importance of expressing emotions. She shared similar reflections, the way she had learned patience, and the appreciation she now had for a love that could grow even during absence. Their conversation was not about blame or regret, but about mutual recognition and gratitude for the journey they had undertaken together. As the day turned to evening, they continued walking, sharing their dreams and hopes for the future. He spoke about the life he wished to build, not in grandiose terms, but in small, meaningful ways that included care, attention, and presence. She spoke about the joy of having someone to share ordinary moments with, someone who could listen, support, and bring comfort without expectation. Together, they realized that love was not about perfection, but about the willingness to grow, adapt, and cherish each other. They paused near a small fountain, the sound of water creating a peaceful rhythm around them. He looked into her eyes, and in that gaze, both recognized the unspoken promise of commitment. Not a rushed promise, but one born from understanding, patience, and emotional maturity. It was a promise to care, to listen, to be present, and to nurture the connection that had survived both joy and challenge. In the following weeks, their days were filled with shared experiences that reinforced their bond. Simple routines, morning coffee, walks in the park. Conversations about dreams and fears became the foundation of a love that was deeply human and enduring. They laughed together, supported each other during moments of difficulty, and celebrated small victories in each other's lives. Every interaction was a testament to the power of patience, empathy, and mutual respect. They learned to communicate openly, expressing thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment. Arguments, when they arose, were met with understanding rather than anger. Challenges were faced together rather than alone. The love that had grown quietly now had a strong foundation, built on experience, reflection, and sincere care. One evening, as the sun set over the city, they sat together on a rooftop, watching the world below. The sky was painted with shades of orange and pink, reflecting the warmth that had blossomed between them. They spoke softly, holding hands, and sharing a sense of gratitude for the journey that had brought them here. They understood that life would continue to bring challenges, but they felt ready to face them together. Strengthened by the lessons of patience, empathy, and growth in that moment. They realized that love is not about constant excitement or dramatic gestures. It is about being present, caring deeply, and choosing each other every day. It is about understanding, forgiveness, and the willingness to grow alongside someone who truly matters. Their connection had endured distance, challenges, and uncertainty, and now it stood as a testament to the resilience of human emotion. The story of their love, once quiet and tentative, had blossomed into something deeply heartwarming. It was a love that was grounded in reality, enriched by personal growth, and strengthened through patience and understanding. They had learned that true romance is not just about moments of passion, but about the small, consistent acts of care, attention, and emotional presence. As night fell, they continued their walk hand in hand, feeling a sense of peace and completeness that comes from finding a rare connection. They had faced the tests of life, grown individually, and now were ready to embrace a shared future. Their love was not perfect, but it was real, enduring, and deeply human, a heartwarming romance that had survived trials and blossomed into a lasting bond. And so, their story concluded not with grand finales, but with the gentle certainty that comes from knowing that true love, when nurtured with patience, understanding, and care, can endure anything. They walked together into the night, not needing dramatic words or gestures, for their hearts already knew the depth of their bond and the promise of the love they would continue to share. After reuniting and rebuilding their bond, they entered a new phase of life together, one filled with shared experiences, small joys, and the comfort of knowing they had each other. The love that had grown slowly, quietly, and carefully was now woven into every day, visible not in grand gestures, but in the ordinary moments that made life meaningful. They spent mornings together in calm routines, sometimes talking, sometimes sitting in silence, feeling the comfort of each other's presence. Breakfast became a simple ritual, where laughter and shared stories filled the kitchen. Even small gestures, like pouring a cup of tea for each other or leaving a note to brighten the other's day, carried significance. These acts, ordinary in appearance, were expressions of care and connection that made their bond deeper and more resilient. He began to notice how naturally their lives were aligning. Their interests, routines, and values meshed effortlessly, not because of luck, but because of the understanding they had built over time. He appreciated her perspective on life, the gentle way she approached challenges, and the optimism she carried even in difficult times. Her presence inspired him to approach his own life with more patience, compassion, and admired his quiet strength and thoughtful approach to the world. She felt safe with him, knowing he would listen without judgment and support her in ways that were meaningful and sincere. Their conversations were deep and honest, covering dreams, fears, and everyday thoughts. They learned to navigate disagreements with care, using understanding instead of defensiveness. Each day reinforced the foundation of respect and trust they had cultivated. The love they shared grew in depth, not in intensity, but in richness. They explored new experiences together, from small adventures like visiting local markets and parks, to longer journeys that allowed them to discover more about themselves and each other. Each experience became a shared memory, building a sense of partnership and companionship that was steady and enduring. Even in difficult times, their bond held firm. Life still brought challenges, work pressures, unexpected changes, and personal struggles, but they faced them together. They learned that real love is not about avoiding hardship, but about standing together through it. When one felt weak or discouraged, the other offered support, understanding, and encouragement. These moments reinforced the quiet strength of their connection. They also found joy in supporting each other's growth. He encouraged her to pursue her dreams, offering help and motivation when she needed it. She inspired him to embrace vulnerability and express his feelings more openly. Together, they became better versions of themselves. Not because of pressure, but because of the mutual support and care that love nurtures. Their relationship was marked by small celebrations of each other and life itself. Anniversaries were not about extravagant gifts, but about shared moments that reflected the journey they had taken. Simple gestures, a handwritten letter, a thoughtful message, or a quiet dinner held deep meaning. They understood that the essence of love lies in attention, intention, consistency. Friends and family noticed the change in them as well. They radiated a calm happiness, a presence that was noticeable to those around them. Their connection was not flashy or dramatic, but it was palpable. People often remarked on how comfortable they seemed together, how their respect and care for each other were evident in every interaction. Through the years, they encountered moments that tested their love further, as life inevitably does. There were misunderstandings, moments of doubt, and occasional disagreements. But each time, they approached the situation with patience, honesty, and empathy. They had learned that conflict did not weaken love, but could strengthen it when approached with care and understanding. They also shared quiet, tender moments that reinforced the intimacy of their relationship. Long walks, evening talks, and shared hobbies allowed them to enjoy each other's presence without pressure or expectation. These moments, simple yet profound, became the heart of their connection. They learned to savor life in its ordinary beauty, finding contentment in togetherness and appreciation for the small things that make love lasting over time. Their love became a source of stability, joy, and inspiration not only for themselves but also for those around them. They demonstrated that true romance is built on patience, understanding, the courage to remain present even when life is complicated. Their story was not about perfect moments or dramatic declarations, but about consistent care, respect, and the quiet strength of enduring connection. They also embraced the beauty of shared dreams. Planning for the future became an act of partnership, where each supported the other's aspirations while considering the needs and desires of both. Their home became a place of warmth, trust, and mutual support, a reflection of the love they had cultivated over time as the years continued. Their bond matured into a love that was deeply rooted, resilient, and comforting. It was a love that could withstand the trials of life, yet remain tender and joyful. Each day offered new opportunities to express care, understanding, and affection. Reinforcing the depth of the connection they shared, they often reflected on the journey that had brought them together. The initial moments of connection, the quiet growing of friendship, challenges, the separation, and finally the reunion. All these experiences had shaped a love that was rare and precious. They understood that the path to true connection is not always easy, but it is deeply rewarding when nurtured with patience, empathy, and sincerity. Their story, now filled with shared experiences and enduring love, continued to unfold, not with grand events, but with meaningful human moments. It was a love grounded in reality, enriched by personal growth, and strengthened by the trials they had faced together. Every glance, touch, and conversation reinforced the bond they had carefully built. In the quiet evenings, they would often sit together, reflecting on life and their journey. Words were not always necessary. The presence of each other was enough. They had learned that love is not just about moments of passion, but about consistency, understanding, and the choice to be present and caring every day. And so, their story reached a place of calm and profound warmth. They continued to walk together through life, hand in hand, ready to face challenges, celebrate joys, and share ordinary moments that had become extraordinary because of their connection. The love they shared was not perfect, but it was enduring, human, and heartwarming, a testament to the beauty of patience, growth, and the quiet, powerful presence of two hearts choosing each other every day